Welcome. Hello, everybody. How are you guys? It's been a little while since I've been on here. I have been working tirelessly for you guys. I have been on the road for 4 months and finally got home after the third leg of the Winter Wasteland tour. I stayed at the Hurricane Compound. And I worked with Josh on some post-production stuff, building stuff, like going through the gear, building stuff in the studio, doing stuff on his drum set, all this other stuff. A lot of tinkering, a lot of woodworking, a lot of electrical work, all kinds of really crazy stuff. Basically, I've been, a rigging expert, so to speak, with a construction expert, with an electrical engineering degree that's all self-taught. But yeah, so nothing really crazy. We were just adding, doing stuff with lights and equipment and stuff like that. So a lot of construction and disassembly, all the fun stuff. But we put it all back together just in time for the Black Label Society tour that we are going out on now. On this tour, I am very pleased to announce, some of you may have seen on my Instagram page, I finally got my custom 916 bass signature pickup. I have been working tirelessly with Matt from Plan 916 for years on this design. I've been working with Matt. So a little backstory for those of you who don't know. Back in 2015, I was playing bass with a band called The Independents on a full American tour, punk rock tour, van tour, super awesome. In that, I was able to, through the matters of the interwebs, I wound up being in touch with Matt. I think he had made a pickup for someone that I had played a show with, and I just started talking with him, and the guy knows absolutely everything. So he's been making my guitar pickups for all of my guitars. Those of you who know, I have like 30 or something guitars, and every single guitar that I have, minus I think one or two for various reasons, has 916 pickups in it. For years, when I was buying guitars, I couldn't afford super expensive guitars. I still don't buy overly expensive guitars. Because they get beat up, and I'm not made of money, right? Like I have so many instruments that I can't afford to buy a $10,000 guitar each time. And people will argue, well, if you buy one $10,000 guitar, you don't need 15 guitars, and this is very true. However, I have a multitude of gigs that I do. I am a jack of all trades, and I have to do all kinds of different types of gigs. So because of that, I usually need guitars set up in all different tunings, all different styles, Floyds, fixed bridges, bass, 7-string, 8-string, whatever it is, whatever the reason is. I always have to have a lot of guitars. So the biggest thing I used to do in the beginning is I used to spend all my money buying EMGs for all of my guitars. And back in the day, that was suffice. But there was also, when I was not playing music where a clean channel mattered. How about that? That's actually the best way I can put that. I wasn't playing in bands where clean channel mattered, and some of the bands that I do play in where the clean channel doesn't matter. Even then, I like to have more control with my instrument. If I use a lot of really cool gear. So if I ever need like any more distortion or compression, I can just add that on myself. And I actually tend to do that even with the 916 pickups, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So, so I started talking with Matt. He's been developing pickups for me for years. Him and I have gone back and R&D, and I have loved my journey alongside of him. He fills my head up with more information than I ever knew. He was giving me breakdowns of pickups and magnets and steel qualities, even recently, based upon our talks with getting these pickups sent out to me in time for the tour. And he shipped them out. I put them in, and at first I put them in one bass. So as you guys know, I have two identical basses. They are sequential serial number Ibanez BTB 845 DTL models. They are sequential serial numbers. I don't know that they're exactly made from the same piece of wood, but if there was ever a chance of, two instruments being as close to sounding exactly the same as possible, it would be the two basses I have. They were both shipped to me at the exact same time by Ibanez from their factory. Like I said, the serial numbers go in order. That's crazy. I even have pictures that I'll post for some of you guys as well. I took pictures of the manuals that I actually have right here. And on here, on the front of these manuals, it has a serial number. And I don't know if that's coming in or what. I don't think so. I think it's too bright with my lighting. But yeah. So it has the serial numbers right on top. And so this was a really good test. I've been in the best position possible to do anything for Matt, to show him kind of a comparison. After all the years, I am very mobile, and I don't get a lot of time to work on a lot of my own stuff, unfortunately, because I'm always working for other people. But in this particular case, what we have is I took base that I call the base 13. They go all sequential serial numbers, but one ends in 13, one ends in 14. So naturally, I call them 13 or 14 most of the time. 13 I tend to call Rose, because it has the rosewood neck illusions, and 14 I tend to call Bonnie, because it has the ebony neck illusions fretboard with my logo on it. So, but yeah, so I don't know how I'm going to respond to those or reference those in the future, because I go back and forth, if you can imagine. But I'll do my best to keep it streamlined. So, base 13 I kept exactly as it was, exactly as it always has been, everything. And just to give you the rundown of that, so these stock Ibanez BTBs that were given to me, the Bartolini preamp died on 13. I forget when, but in the somewhere at the tail end of the second leg of the Winter Wasteland tour. Nope, the tail end of the first leg of the Winter Wasteland tour, because I was in New Jersey and I went there to see my son for Christmas. On my break in February, I came back to Florida. So it was somewhere in the first leg of the Winter Wasteland tour. Now, I've used these basses on all other Nita Strauss shows. It's the only thing I've ever used them for. I got them to play next to Nita. I've always loved Ibanez, and I reached out to them, and I think I have posted a video down below of the day that I got the basses. I've always been a huge fan of Ibanez, as you can tell. My very first guitar is an Ibanez, and when I reached out to them, I told them straight up, like, I didn't want to be playing these other basses that I had next to her. Like, I'm a huge fan. She has her signature model guitar. It just makes sense for me to be at least playing an Ibanez bass next to her. And they wound up hooking me up. Now, I'm not an Ibanez artist, but they did give me a deal where they gave me one bass for free, and I got the other one for cost. So they hooked it up. And special thanks to, not that he'll see this, but only you guys will, but special thanks to Mike Arrigo over at Ibanez and Josh for hooking up that deal. So the preamp died, and I brought my basses to Ronaldo Custom Guitars in, I think it's Union, New Jersey, or North Bergen, somewhere around there. And beautiful, beautiful guitar shop. I brought my basses there because when I contacted them, they were the only place that had the preamp in stock for my basses. Because of the supply chain shortage, I tried. Even through Bartolini, I was not able to get the preamp that broke. I tried to, even though I didn't love my basses. I hate my basses being on batteries. So to bring it back around, I put EMGs in all my guitars, but the thing that I hate the most is I hate batteries. I tour a lot, and the thing I hate the most about touring with batteries is they die at the worst possible times in the middle of a song, and you'll be playing a song, you'll be like, man, why does my guitar sound like shit? Or why does my bass sound like shit? And then you like switch to your backup, and then it sounds great again. You're like, what the hell? And then you go and you check the battery, dead. And it always happens in the middle of a set, and I change my batteries really often. But it's just, you know, your basses and guitars get plugged in a lot. When you use wireless units on tour and you have a guitar tech, they just tend to be plugged in longer than they would if you were the one holding it. Our tech Shoddy is great with changing our batteries and making sure everything's, you know, fully charged and everything. But I haven't been able to get rechargeable 9 volts. So I just buy 9 volts. So we just change them every 2 or 3 shows, which also gets expensive. If I don't change them every 2 or 3 shows, then my bass goes out, you know, when I don't want it to. So I hate batteries. And for years, switching to 916 pickups, the thing that I've been able to get is I moved from stock passive pickups to every single guitar head EMGs or Seymour Duncan Dimebuckers and stuff like that, but which is a passive pickup. Only because I like got one in a used guitar and I put it in like every single one of my guitars over the years. Like the same pickup went in multiple guitars over the years. So working with Matt, he designs things to be clear, crisp, and give you the exact tone. He has signature pickup sets for Jimmy Page. He has signature pickup sets for Tony Iommi, Angus and Malcolm Young, and Dean. And so, you know, I knew what the quality was going to be in getting pickups from Matt. And so I was getting... Oh, I skipped over. I'm so sorry. I brought my basses to Ronaldo because I was trying to get the preamp replaced. He wound up having the wrong preamp. So I was just like, well, what if you just take the preamp out and just wire the pickups, neck pickup to volume knob, bridge pickup to volume knob, out to the output jack. And he did it. And he did it to one bass, and then he called me up and I was like, you know, does it sound like kind of the same as the other one? He's like, yeah. I just took his word for it. Usually I'm so like particular, but I just took his word for it. And I was like, all right, if you think it sounds like the same or pretty close, just take the preamp out of both of them. So I deleted for the rest of the other 2 tours, the other 2 legs of the tours. I played my stock Ibanez BTBs for the second 2 legs of the Winter Wasteland tour with just the stock passive pickups, and I deleted the preamp, and I just filled the holes with like those push in like little snap things, those little covers, and it sounded pretty good. It definitely sounded a little bit different, but just to explain, with the Bartolini preamp, I was never using it anyway. I kept the 3 EQ controls. The original controls were a master volume, a blend knob where you could turn it and have only the neck pickup, turn it and have only the bridge pickup, or put it in the middle in a little setting, and you would use both, where I always used it. I always used that whole preamp setup. The switch, I just had it in the down position. I didn't know what it did. I just figured the down position was off and maybe it would kill the battery less. The 3 EQs, I had them right in dead center. There's a little setting where you could feel it just locks in dead center. I use none of the preamp ever because I'm on stage. I move around a lot. I can't afford for things to get hit. So usually with those preamps, I actually wound up taping all those knobs closed all the time. So I just had to make sure that I was recording for a second because you guys have no idea how many times I've done this for like an hour or 2 hours and sat here and look over and I didn't record it. So, which stinks, but hey, at least I get to like run through my stuff. But yeah, so we deleted both those preamps. It sounded pretty decent. But then, and I was having a problem with my output jacks. That was the only thing. And when the guy did replace my 2 pickups, it did make it sound better, or sound good, and I didn't have any issues as far as that went for, or that I noticed for like loss of tone or anything like that, because I wasn't using any of that boosting EQ. If anything, I would have probably had a little bit more output because my bass signal was now no longer going through a circuit board. It was just going direct, just like old school. Just like exactly as I was starting to trail off about Matt, it's old school. With less stuff in there, with less bad stuff in there, you get clear tones. So Matt had this great outlook on U.S. Steel and his copper construction, his windings, the way that you either using slugs or thin rails or hot rails or stacked or whatever, stacked pickups. He just had. I knew that we were going to get to this, and so he's been working tirelessly. He sent me. Oh, let me get it. They're taped up right now, but he sent me these little templates that he cut out or like printed or whatever. And so we're going to make some slight adjustments to the neck pickup because, all right, so all of the information about Ibanez BTB says that they have a 19 millimeter string spacing. But that's only for the bridge. The strings are a little bit closer together in the neck. So we might make a second neck pickup. This is only prototype number 1. We're going to see. I'm going to put it in and we're going to see what the difference is. But yeah, so there are, I will post pictures. I already have, but I'll post more if you guys want. Let me know down below in the comments of this post. He sent me these. And basically he designed these pickups out for me, and they're based on 19 millimeter string spacing, and it's just U.S. Steel slugs, 2 offset slugs for each string, and the real big difference here is that I've wanted to change these pickups for a long time. Okay, so part of the problem with this over the years has been the Ibanez BTB base has a soap bar pickup. And what that means is, this is the one from Matt. It is this black thing. And so for a long time, Matt wasn't able to get his hands on these casings. That was the biggest thing that was holding us up for a really long time, was just access to these casings. As it is, for the types of usually these casings have a lot less inside, and that's why they use an EQ, and they boost it with they boost the signal with the battery. That's why they put the battery there. So real quick lesson, active pickups versus passive pickups, right? Active pickups means that your guitar has a battery. Passive pickups means that it doesn't. Active pickups use less copper and magnets, and lesser magnets and stuff to save on the cost for the manufacturer, but I got to put this back so I don't mix them up. But the cost goes on to the consumer, so you have to buy the batteries. So they save on the copper and the materials, and you have to buy the battery. The cost goes from them to you. So don't mind me, I'm getting all my stuff together over here as well. And so that's really what happens with these active pickups. They usually have like little op amp chips that are in there that are like these little cheap $5 chips in there from like your cheap $10 guitar amps. They have those in there, and they use lesser stuff. A lot of that stuff is also made overseas. Even for the big companies with their passive pickups, a lot of that stuff is made overseas. And in China, they don't have the same quality control for metals, right? They'll let anything from an aluminum can from 1980 to a 55 Chevy to anything in between in that smelter when they're pouring these castings. So with that, and in replacing a lot of the pickups over the years, I noticed a lot of bad noises going away. A lot of those frequencies that hurt your ears, those high screeching things, even with high gain amps, when I use my 916 pickups versus other pickups, I don't get a lot of that bad noise. And like many of you will know, what is more important than the noise that your guitar makes? I heard you say it. I heard you. The noise it doesn't make, right? And so more important than anything else is if you cut out the bad stuff, all the good stuff gets to shine through. So he wasn't able to get these casings for a long time, so he started making molds and pouring epoxy resin. So back in 2017, when we really started talking about getting pickups made for me, this was before my idea for this current design. I just wanted any pickup that he made in my Ibanez BTB. He was working on making these epoxy molds, and the guy's phenomenal. He's so good. But when I put the pickups in, they weren't functioning properly. And the only thing I can think of is when he was pouring the epoxy mold, that something in there shifted, and you couldn't see because it was black. So I was having a hard time with my 5th string, and you can't get inside to do anything. If like the poles or something had to be there's nothing you can do. You can't get in there. You can't readjust the magnet. You can't do anything. So that was a bust. And because of that, honestly, like after that attempt, Matt made me, I think, 2 or 3 pickups like that, and they just weren't working right. And so it was a little disheartening for both of us. And so we kind of took a seat back. Over the years, I did I played 100 shows all around the U.S. with Michael Graves. Back then, it was way before he was canceled, and things were really good. It was like a really great Misfits set, and that was something from my childhood that I've talked about before, and I'll talk about more later. But after that tour, I didn't have anything for a while, and then I got the Nita Strauss gig, and then I was like, oh man, we're using like the set list. I didn't have it down like the way I do. So like after Michael Graves, I broke my headstock off of my 5-string BTB, and I was in a music video with Alex. I still have the bass, and I will do something with it. I want to put it on a plaque with the broken headstock and the strings and shit, just like all dangling. I want to like frame it and hang it on the wall. But yeah, I broke my headstock off my bass, and so at that moment, I was never really happy with the 916. I'm so sorry. I was never really happy with the stock Bartolini pickups in my original Ibanez BTB 575 FM. It was green, transparent green. Had the typo negative sticker on it in some of the pictures on my Instagram. I was never really happy with those, hence why I just wanted anything from Matt, right? Before I even tried to design anything, I just wanted anything from Matt. And so when that bass broke, because that was my favorite bass, even though it wasn't my favorite sounding bass, it was my favorite bass. It was my favorite shape. I love everything about the Ibanez BTB, the extended scale, the super long scale, all that. And I went to every Guitar Center, Sam Ash, music store, mom and pop shop. I went everywhere to find a new bass because I had another tour going up with Michael Graves too. And like I needed a bass. And so since I was going to tour with Graves, I didn't have to have a 5-string. I was just going to concede and just, only get a 4-string. And so I tried every single bass on the planet that I could have access to. It didn't even matter the price tag. If it sounded good, I was going to go against my normal thing, and I was even going to spend a boatload of money on a bass if it sounded if I got the sound I wanted. And I picked up a Fender Aerodyne, one of the cheapest basses, one of the least expensive basses I picked up. But it had the Fender Bassline PJ pickup combo, and most basses do not have the P bass pickup, which is when you look at a bass and you see the pickup and it's like split like this. They don't have that P bass pickup with the jazz pickup. Most of the time they'll have either just the P bass pickup or 2 jazz pickups. There's very few models that have that pickup combo. So long story short, I bought with the help of Alex, my old singer, doing a GoFundMe for me for when I broke my bass because I had a tour coming up. I took that GoFundMe money and I bought that Fender Aerodyne. Eventually, Matt did make me a PJ pickup for that bass, but I had to wind up selling that bass, like a couple years ago. I needed money, whatever. We got so many instruments. You got to sell some. I didn't get a chance to take the PJ pickups from Matt out of that, but it went from sounding okay to even better. And so it was at that moment when Matt gave me a PJ set for that Aerodyne, and I took those bass lines out and put those in, and it sounded the way it did, I knew that that was the one. But the thing I didn't like about the Aerodyne was it had a short scale. So at the time, I had also gotten myself an endorsement with Jericho Guitars and Basses, and I loved the way that the way that bass sounded. It was basically it was like a knockoff Fender Aerodyne, but it had a 35-inch scale, just like the BTB. It was only a 4-string, but it also had the PJ pickup combo. So that's the bass that I used most of the time on the Angel Vivaldi tour with Nita. My backup for that was the Aerodyne. Because it was just all about the PJ pickup combo. And I sold both of those basses together at the time when I needed money a couple years back, which I regret. Usually I don't sell stuff like that because they both sounded so good. Like, even though they were only 4 strings, they would be great to have for lessons because right now I only have 5-string basses. But yeah, they sounded so good. It'd be great for studio stuff, but whatever. Sold them, que sera, sera. But those basses sounded so good. I loved it so much. And on the Angel tour, because we played The Show Must Go On, so Nita Strauss would play everything a full step down. But The Show Must Go On, the bass solo in the beginning goes really high up on the highest string. And when I tuned these 4 strings down like 5 strings, I lost, because I play lower notes, even though the guitars don't go down that low. I do. I didn't have access to that higher note. So throughout all of this, I get my new BTBs, and I'm like, well, I start talking with Matt, and I go, hey, man, is there any way that we can try and make this pickup? So for years, what Matt and I have been talking about, and I even reached out to Ibanez. This has been a long journey for me, if you can't tell by the fact that this has already taken forever to explain. But I had spoken with Ibanez about getting a blank body or getting a body that was routed for a PJ. Like, they couldn't change any of the CNC machining for me unless I was doing like custom shop work and all this other stuff, and that was going to be super, super pricey, plus having the blank and all this other stuff. So I didn't want to cut up my basses. These 2 basses that I have, I think, are absolutely beautiful. I could have very easily sent these 2 basses to Matt, and he could have put stock PJ pickup combination in there. He would have rerouted out the body, but then at that moment, he would have had to paint the entire bass because of the type of finish and the breakage of it in that section. Anything we would have filled it with, it would have just looked booty, it wouldn't have looked good. I would have destroyed the finish and the overall look of the bass that I love so very much. If the bass was blank and I was able to route out the holes, I would put the stacked pickups in there, the stacked PJ or P pickup combo in there. But I didn't want to hurt these basses. So Matt worked tirelessly to meet my demands. He's such a good guy. And so he designed a PJ pickup combo that fits within this soap bar. So this pickup right here, this is the bridge pickup. This is a fat jazz pickup. All right, so it's like a heavy wound jazz pickup. It's a single coil. The other pickup is the P bass pickup. It looks identical to this, except it has these split coils. So effectively, what it is it is a humbucker pickup that looks like a single coil. Humbucker is just the way that pickups are wired magnetically with their poles, and single coils give a brighter shimmery sound. But with the single coil, you get what's called the 60 cycle hum, and that hum, that sound that you hear when a guitarist turns his guitar on, especially with the Fender, is the sound of electricity traveling through the walls. You hear it in your instruments. So the humbucker bucks the hum. And when you put 2 single coils together like that, like if this was just 2 single coils, when you put them both up, it also does that. It also bucks the hum. So now I have a humbucker in the neck and a single coil in the bridge. I have the specs right here, so let me just ramble this off real quick. Oh, that's not the specs. That is my opinion about the pickups. So the specs right here about the 916 pickups are as follows. The P-Bass pickup has neodymium magnets. It's quarter-inch certified U.S. steel slugs. Runs at 13.3K resistance. The bridge pickup is a Jazz XL soap bar. It's also neodymium and quarter-inch U.S. certified steel slugs, 13.2K. So the rest is just how he wound it and how he wired it, and we're not going to share all those things, right? Not yet. But if you like this stuff, if you think these, I'm going to play you. So, all right. So I do this, and then I get these pickups after all of my running around since November 4th. I've only been home for 2 weeks since November 4th, right? And in these 2 weeks, I get home the next day, package gets to my house, boom, 2 sets of 916 pickups. So I put one set in 14, and I left 13 exactly as it was. So this super long story that I've told you thus far, we are all the way back down to 2 weeks ago. I get home, I get these pickups, put them in the bass, start playing it. Initially, first impressions, I didn't know if I liked them. I played through, I took my bass, I took 14, I put it into my Fractal that I use on tour, and I play it right away. It sounded good. But then I took the other bass and I plugged in the stock Bartolinis, and in my brain, I honestly thought that was better. I felt like the other ones were too bass heavy. And then I went back and forth, and I was like trying to, like, you know, it's so hard when you're playing an instrument and also trying to diagnose what you're thinking about it, right? So automatically, right off the bat, boom, I changed my Fractal tone to a new setting. I didn't lose that one. I still have the one that I love, that I swear by. And not to mention I have pictures and backups of all the settings and everything. But I automatically changed the settings. And the reason why is because I was trying to alter the sound. So, like, if you can imagine, the two pickups that my first impression, they were quite different. And I didn't know what was better yet. So I started, it was really silly of me, but I started changing my settings to, in my mind, better fit what the 916 pickups were giving me. So I took both of those. I took a bunch of drum loops. I opened up a Pro Tools session. I built an entire, I built a 2-minute song, kind of like song, whatever is debatable. But I built a 2-minute track where I dropped in different drum samples. And then after I got something that was kind of passable, it's weird changes and all kinds of stuff. I basically just took Drum Kit from Hell and dragged and dropped different MIDI files into Pro Tools and then lined them up. And then as I was doing that, I kind of had my bass in my hand and I was playing to it and I was kind of jamming. Then I let it play through a few times, just the drum track while I, like, you know, ran up and down the neck trying to figure out what kind of sounds I wanted to get, what kind of vibe I was getting from this track. And then, boom, laid down a scratch track of the bass. It was just the drums playing and I laid down just a scratch track. It was all off the top of my head. I didn't really know what I was doing other than those few times I'd ran through it. And then I just kept picking the best parts out of the stuff that I did for a sec, and I built the track. I kept that track. I then recorded good takes. I kept that as a reference track, or this way for you guys. I kept it as a reference track. And then I recorded a good take with the 916 pickups in 14 through the Fractal. And I recorded 2 signals at once. I plugged my bass direct into a radial DI box, and then I record the DI signal. So just the bass. Then it comes out of the DI box and goes into the Fractal. I simultaneously record that. So I'm recording those 2 signals, the Fractal tone and the DI tone, simultaneously throughout. I get a good take with the 916 bass, and I get a good take with the Bartolini bass. I go through, I get pretty far into the mixing process. Um, I record the bass. I record good takes for both bass variations. Then I put some guitars in there just because you need to know what it sounds like in reference, right? So I took two guitar tones. I took Johnny's guitar tone from this fractal that he used on the first leg of the Winter Wasteland tour. And then I took my guitar tone that I use for teaching, and I panned them. So when we do listen to this song, the guitar that you hear in your left ear, if you're listening in headphones, that's Johnny's guitar tone with some EQing. And then the guitar you hear in your right ear, that is my guitar tone that I use for teaching. So I recorded all this and I started mixing it, and man, there was just some noise in both recordings of the bass that I just couldn't EQ it out. I couldn't get rid of it. There was like this high end shrill, and there was too much, too much noise. And I was like, what is this? Like I thought it was me. It was me, but I thought it was me, like in not being able to, like not knowing what I was doing with EQing or something like that, within Pro Tools. I thought I was doing something wrong. One of the things that I did was I had changed my fractal tone. So the bass tone wasn't at where it was supposed to be. And so one of the things that I did since the initial impression of the 916 pickups were that they were bass heavy, I boosted the treble on my distortion pedal on my bass setting. That was one of the things that I did. I added a little bit more presence and brightness when I should have just been cutting out lows. But anyway, neither here nor there. I added in a bunch of crap that didn't sound good. And so after working on this track for 3 or 4 days, trying to EQ it and get it working and all this other stuff, it sounded like such crap that I went back to my original OG tone in my other fractal for bass, and I used that, and I re-recorded both bass takes. And holy shit, everything fell into place. Now with some a little bit of advice from some people, one of you, actually a couple of you guys that are here, I sent you guys this track as I was working on it, which I appreciated the feedback every step of the way. I knew that it wasn't good. I wound up having 14 mixes. Mix 13 was the one that really stood out and shined, and then I just tweaked it a little tiny bit. The big difference between all of those mixes is me trying to cut out low end from the mix. And all of those mixes, everything that I was doing was completely and utterly pointless. So mix 1 through 10 or 11 or something like that, everything I did to those mixes, in EQing or levels or anything like that, because there's drums, there's guitars, and everything has to sit in its spot. And so with my EQ approach, and I don't know if I'll show you guys, we'll have to see when we get there. With my EQ approach, the only thing that I do with EQing on this recording is I duck out some frequencies that are conflicting. So that's it. On the basses, both basses, whatever I did to the 916 bass to get it to sound good in the mix, I dragged and dropped to the Bartolini mix. And I will tell you, the only difference between my EQing of those two is I had to cut out a little. I had to just increase a little bit more on, like, spread the dip a little bit wider for the mids on the Bartolinis to get it to sound better. That's the only difference. So I just cut out frequencies between the kick drum and the bass drum or the guitars that were conflicting with each other, so that way everything sat in its own spot. The biggest bit of advice that I got was from Johnny. He had me put what's called a side chain compressor on the kick drum. Now, I knew to do that. I just didn't know how to do that. And basically what that does is it is a compressor plugin that every time the kick drum hits, it ducks the bass out for just that second. So that way you're not getting all this at once You know, speakers don't really respond to that. It's not the same as a rock show. What you do for a live show is not the same as what you do for recording. So the only thing I did of any sort was I took out some frequencies so things would sit better. But other than that, I didn't boost anything. I didn't boost any frequencies anywhere except for in the kick drum. I put some high end in there. And in Johnny's guitar, I added some high end in there because his tone was a little bit more boxy than my other one, and just to help it have a little bit more sharpness and fit in the mix better. But other than that, everything was all just subtractive, you know, in any regard. And all I did was I used a 7-band EQ, and I used a compressor, and then the stuff for the kick drum. So the sidechain compressor. And that's it. And it's, you know, it's very, very, very simple. This entire process took me, this 1 2-minute track did take me over a week to do because I haven't recorded a song in a while. I've never worked in this room that I live in here. I remember I moved in here in July. I left here in November. I have not done a track in this room. So the room in which you're in really changes the dynamic of your mix. You have to learn your room. And one of the great things that happened along this process is I found a spot in my room. And any of you guys that do at-home recordings, I found a spot in my room where all of the bad low-end frequencies, all those, I found a spot in my room where I can move to and hear them. So I play the track and I go over there. And then I search for the bad frequency and then I just duck it out. Really, really, really great. You know, it was a happy accident. And so everything is basically, then there's a slight master on it. There's a slight EQ on the master, but that's the entire mix, you know, and then there's a compressor on the master. There's only a couple EQs. Now with this, the main goal for this was to supply myself and Matt with R&D. Hey, how do these pickups sound? How do they sound compared to the pickups I've been using? The beauty is no matter what I've done with the EQ, I have the DI files. And the DI files of the 916 versus the Bartolini pickups, the DI files have nothing. They don't have the fractal on them. I think for the purpose of the mix, I have the EQ on them. But like I just turn it off and export them. And I already did that. And then I sent them over to Matt. So we get to hear everything raw. So just to let you know, with both bass tones here, what I did was for the mix is I have my fractal tone, mainly like right here. And then I have the DI tone going way down here. If I were to solo the two of them, which I might do when I turn this way, if I solo the two of them, then you'll be able to hear very clearly that the two of them together really makes a great sound in both cases for the Bartolini and for the 916. So, the 916 pickups, right off the bat, they had a more throaty low end. See my clipboard? They had a more throaty low end and a clearer low end too, as well. They were a bit warmer. And but the high end had a lot more clarity without added distortion, which was really great. Clear pick attack without the bad high frequencies. And like when I tell you about like cheap metals and cheap steels and cheap coppers and stuff like that, that's the electronics are one of the most defining factors in a lot of guitars. You know, besides like an initial setup and things like finish and stuff like that, like a big difference in the sound. Not the playability, but a big difference in the sound of a cheap Gibson Les Paul versus a Gibson Les Paul is the pickups and the electronics. They're crystal clear. They're USA steel. It's crisp. It's clear. You know, if you just took a Gibson's electronics and put it in a Les Paul, it'll sound like a Gibson, you know? So the Bartolinis, they are a little bit more bright, which I do like sometimes. They have a little bit more shimmer and a little bit more scratch to the pick. Now, the shimmer I like, the scratch I don't like. there's significantly less good low end. There's still low end, but there's not low end where I want it. There's not, or where I would prefer it. It does have better pick attack than the 916 pickups, based upon this EQing, right? Like I said, whatever I did to one, I did the exact same thing to the other. I did make the Bartolini sound a little bit better, but I can show you. I can show you that change. I can show you the difference between the two. When I dropped the exact EQ on from the 916 onto the Bartolini pickup file, the Bartolini had a bad frequency, a bad mid-range frequency that was like overloading and sucking, so I ducked a little bit more out. I actually helped out the Bartolini pickups a little bit more than I helped out the 916 pickups. On both bases, though, there's a high-pass filter to cut out some of the super heavy low end. That type of stuff gets done all the time. Sound guy does it at the show. So you just can't you have to have all your imagine everything was a graph like this, right? When you're listening to a song, each instrument, each part all sits in its own spot right here in a line, in a frequency line, and then that hits you. So that's what mixing is. And this is just a bedroom demo. So but yeah, I really got to listen to the two of them back and forth, especially with the different settings on my Fractal. But everything up until like take 12 or 11 or 12 or something like that, I still have all the files in there, but everything's gone. Like I don't use any of it. I just kept the files in there so that way I can go back for reference. But what you hear in the song is one track for kick, one track for snare, one track that has overheads and toms, and that's the 3 drum tracks. There are 2 tracks per bass example. There is a Bartolini Fractal and a Bartolini DI blended together. Same thing with the 916. There is a 916 Fractal, 916 DI blended together, exactly the same settings, exactly the same blend. Like I said, only one little tiny EQ setting is different, and I almost didn't want to do it, but I wanted it to sound good for you guys. And then one guitar left track that has Johnny's guitar track, and then one guitar right track, and that's it. That's this whole demo. Like if this was a studio album, there'd be 1,000 guitar tracks, keyboards, all kinds of shit. So let's take a gander, shall we? So right now, what I have over here, let me get rid of that. So what you're seeing right here is my Pro Tools session. So it may look a little complicated, and there is a lot of information in there, like I said. But just know that the only thing I'm using is anything that's big. So any of this small stuff on the top here, this is all off. I can even mute. These are just I use a template for doing demos, so it already has like the keyboard tracks and the drum tracks and everything already in there and lined up and stuff. But so everything right here is not being used. The only thing we're listening to is from here down. So it says kick, snare, overheads, which also has the toms in it. The 916, both pickup, it says both, right? So the way I run these pickups is both pickups cranked all the way. Right to the output jack, right into the DI, okay? This is the Fractal, and then this is the DI for the 916, and then this is the Fractal for the Bartolini, and this is the DI for the Bartolini. Here's Johnny's guitar. It has this second section right here because I have reverb on this whole track, and this one just doesn't have the reverb, but it's the exact same EQ. I just cloned the track. And then each of the guitar tracks also has its own DI track. I recorded it just because. But so the big ones here are the fractal. These are the fractals. And then this one down here, since it was just a cloned track, this pink one right here, that's the DI for the left guitar. And then there's the right guitar and then the DI for the right guitar. So let's take a listen there, shall we? So that is the mix with the Bartolinis. Now, over here on my other screen here, I'll just show you. Got to get rid of that for a sec. This is the mixing board. And again, all of this is not being used. Only being used from kick right here down to guitar. This vocal is not being used. Acoustics not being used. Instrument one, that's a keyboard, not being used. And you can see the DI for the guitar is muted here. Right now the Bartolini is muted. But yeah, so the DI tracks for the guitars are muted in this mix right now. I'm not using them plain. But for the 916 pickups, we're using this blend, and you can see this one is significantly higher than this one. So let's just take a sec and listen to, I want you guys to hear how just the pickups sound. So it's going to be just the bass mix. Really throaty. Sorry, I had it on the wrong screen. And so, right there, we're hearing a lot of that pick attack. I still might take some of that chirp out from my original tone. So there's still a little bit of chirp in there that I left in because when I play live, I don't care if that gets like mixed out in the front of the house. When I play live, I need that high end of the bass. That's how I know where I am. In the in-ear monitors, the low end doesn't travel. You know, it's not a big subwoofer. It's a little tiny speaker inside your ear. Like, yes, it can be sub-B, but with the kick drum going on and all this other stuff, like, we don't duck out the frequencies and mix stuff the way I have stuff done here. So it's just everything all at once. So all these frequencies that I did cut out, I will show you. So to show you the EQ on the bass, it looks kind of drastic on this low end here, but this is the high pass filter. Anything below here just sounded bad. And then so these two frequencies here, I ducked them out. And then this is some of that chirp there. I left it up on that one. Now, if I bring up the Bartolini EQ, actually, that's what it was. I ducked out a little bit more low end. That's what it was. I ducked out a little bit more of the bad low end. It had bad low end noise in there. It was sounding like crap. So that's the difference. You can see the EQ of the two of them change. That's really the only thing that changed. We went from there to there. And the only reason why the colors are switched because I just moved them. This is, and I think, let me see. Oh, yeah. The only reason why the colors are switched is because I took this blue one on that other track and moved it here so I could take this green, because they only go so far. If I were to take this and drag it, it'll only go that far. So, I reset the blue marker to be here so I could use the green one to sweep. Now, when I'm trying to find a bad frequency, what I do is I take one of these points and I make it really pointy like this, and then I sweep along its range and I try and hear for what sounds like absolute dog crap. And when I find it, like let's say I don't like this frequency, then I take it and I go like that up, and then I go like this. And so you can see that's how my EQing is done. So fairly simple. Yeah, it was just the Bartolini's. It's funny, the 916 has more low end, but more good low end where it doesn't sound muddy and crappy. And the Bartolini's have more muddy low end, right? Like with the 916s, I have clear low end signal, which has everything to do with the product. You know, what's inside of it. I'm not going to like pretend like, you know, Matt necessarily has some magic way of winding pickups, but it's the quality of the products within. It makes all of the difference. It makes all of the difference. You know, there's a reason why race cars don't use Walmart tires. There's just a reason for it. It's not that the Walmart tires don't work. It's that the Walmart tires don't work under the conditions that are needed the way they need to work. And that's what we're seeing here. So, again, if we look at the kick EQ, same deal, low pass, cut out these frequencies where it conflicted with the bass. And this is the boosting. That's the tick in the kick drum. The snare, I do not have an EQ on. The overheads, I do not have an EQ on. This right here, this is just a compressor. So the only things I used was I EQ'd some stuff so that way it sounded good in the mix. And then I used the compressor. And this is just compressor on the snare. And then reverb. And then a compressor on the overheads. So this is EQ followed by compressor. That's what the bass signal is. This right here, this is the side chain compressor. You could see right here that this compressor limiter is coming from 916 Fractal. It gets its signal from the kick drum. So if I were to play it, if I were to play the track right now, you will see. So see, nothing's happening, right? No, what? Look at the kick drum. So that's all that is. Now, It's great. I did do something by mistake, but I want to show you anyway. So look, this is what my fractal tone sounds like. Oh, sorry, that's the DI tone. This is the fractal tone. And this is the DI tone. Now the DI tone, I put the exact same EQ and compressor and sidechain compressor. I did not EQ the DI mix for the purpose of EQing the DI mix. I just have it so that way I could put it in the mix, but I had to take the same frequencies out of it that I took out of the other bass track. Otherwise, I'd get that low end mud that I don't want. So I just took this and I dragged it right on top of it. Same thing with the compressor. So however the 9161 was, it's exactly the same. That being said, same goes for the Bartolini. So, all right. So here's my 916 bass tone. And so then, there's your reference. And so same deal, I'm going to go right to the dual tone so that way you guys still have the reference of the Bartolini. Same exact mix, a little bit more low end cutout. So I just switched from the Bartolini to the fractal, so you hear the difference. So let me group my channels here. Oh, they should be together. Oh, the solo doesn't work, but the mute does. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play these first two riffs. I'm gonna let it play through a little bit here. And then I'm going to switch it to here to the other bass. And then I'm going to let this play about halfway through and then switch it to here. So here we go. Again, this is the 916 bass first. Did you hear? I don't know how it comes across on you and what you're listening to, but when I just switched it from 916 to the Bartolini, yes, I did cut some more low end out of the Bartolinis, but it wasn't like I just widened its scope a little bit. Right? I didn't even like both of them are ducked. Those low frequencies, they're both ducked down like the same, but I just widened them a little bit. So there is a little bit of a low end difference. In that regard, that I'm not going to necessarily hold against the Bartolinis, but I am, because I have to cut it out because the good stuff's not there and only the bad stuff is. So I'm gonna play real quick. I'm gonna play through the Bartolini track from beginning to end, so that way you can scroll back and listen to yourself, for yourself, to how they sound. So, yeah. The only thing I didn't show you yet was how the Bartolini sounded. I want to show you guys how the Bartolini sounds. This is the Bartolini going through the same exact fractal tone, only with that slight low end extra ducking. Right, and let's just put that versus the fractal. The 916 fractal. So much clearer. Right? And then it's so much clearer. And so here is the 916 DI. If you look really close, you can see the difference between this pink wave and then this red wave. This pink wave is the 916. This red wave is the Bartolini, just the DI. And that DI signal is a direct input signal. And that means that it's my bass being plugged directly into the computer and capturing it exactly as is. All right, and so here's the Bartolini DI. Doesn't sound bad. So that's it. I'm going to play the song one more time here at the end, all the way through as we go out. I just want to thank you guys also very much. It is, I don't know, this is going to get posted tonight, right? But I don't know when you're going to watch this, but basically I am recording this. It is 6:30 at night on April 16th, Eastern Standard Time. I'm working up to the minute because I'm leaving so much earlier. As many of you may know, Tour with Nita does not start until the first show of April 30th. We have 2 days of rehearsal before that because Nita's on tour with Alice. But I myself am flying out tomorrow. I'm leaving my house at 7 in the morning. on Easter. Because of that, my aunt is super bummed out. She planned this huge Easter dinner for me to be there to be, super impress me and all this stuff. And I'm not going to be able to be there for it. But that, such is the curse of being in a band. The reason why I'm leaving so early is I have to fly to Cincinnati and pick up our lighting rig. I'm gonna fly to Cincinnati tomorrow morning, get a U-Haul, then pick up the lighting rig, drive it from Cincinnati to Louisiana, meet up with Josh, pick up all the rest of the gear, and then I'm gonna drive to Austin and pick up the merch. Then I'm gonna drive to Santa Fe and pick up Shoddy, and then I'm going to. We're gonna drive to Las Vegas. Then we're gonna go again. Then we're gonna get to Los Angeles. So, a lot of driving in my next few days. So I'm making sure to get this out for you. Also, just a little bit of a personal note. I put myself through legal school this week. Having to do my appeal with School of Rock. I don't know what I can say or what I can't say, but basically, I was on unemployment because of the pandemic and School of Rock, and they fired me, and then they told unemployment that I quit. So I had to perform some major intensive internal surgery on making myself a legal professor in the bestest of ways. But no, I'd be, you guys would all be really proud. I worked really hard on prepping all of that. And yeah, dude, guys, I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I feel so very fortunate. I would like to express extreme gratitude over and over and over again for you guys. You guys literally make it possible for me to do things. And I want you to know that in all these hectic times, I am working on some great stuff more and more and more. I got some cool things in the works. Just like, I was actually just saying to Josh earlier that I love being back around him and Nita because they work so hard, and I've been doing my best Josh impression since November. And what I mean by that is he works so hard, man. The dude barely sleeps. All he does is work. And because of that, I've been working really hard. I am going to start posting videos and uploading videos today, but I can't. If things don't, this will definitely be posted. Any of the other stuff I might not post in time, but before I leave. But I'm going to upload stuff to YouTube. I have tons of footage from my cameras of the tour. The hard drive's coming with me, so I happen to have a 4-hour layover in Charlotte tomorrow, so I'm also going to try and do some work there. But yeah, you guys are so awesome. I thank you guys so very, very much for everything. There have been now this, by the way, this is not necessarily a Dean song or whatever. This is just a riff that I came up with for the purpose of showing you guys what these pickups do, showing you basically the fruits of my hard work after all these years. I'm super happy with the final result. I don't know, there might still be tweaking. We might still tweak that neck pickup a little bit, and who knows, but this is a great start. I'm super happy to be where I am with the pickups and their progression, going from epiphany in my head to a real world tangible item. So special thanks to Matt over at Plan 916 Custom Guitars and Basses. You can find him at Instagram at 916 Pickups. Or just check out my stories or anything like that. I'm always trying to help that guy out. He makes the best goddamn products on the planet. He makes all of the pickups that you want, that you would buy from those big companies, but made out of the best materials. That's the part that people don't understand. It's not just that it's, name brand. Matt will clone any pickup you want too. But make it from the best possible stuff. And they're not overly expensive. They're like $100 and change, a pickup, which I used to spend that much on my EMGs. And then I had to buy batteries every, couple of shows. So, those pickups, an EMG might be cheaper, but man, it's way more expensive in the long run if you're going to be buying 9 volts like that. So, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you so much. Keep a lookout for more content. Any questions you guys have about the pickups that you want more clarification, if you have any more questions, want me to do a deep dive on anything else in regards to this, do you want to talk about mixing? You want to talk about how I recorded it? You want to talk about what my process was? Because it's pretty sporadic. I don't work linearly. I work like this. When I did those bass tracks and I was doing my takes, sometimes I'd work on this one, but then I would skip over the next part and work on that one because I just wanted to hear things first because I wasn't necessarily set on all of the riffs until I was. So I move around a lot. It's kind of a sporadic process. But I've been working on this for days, probably over a week, ever since I put the pickups in, basically. So it's probably been 2 weeks, in that regard, but the actual recording of this and prepping and getting to this point, like I had to make sure that the song sounded good. It's just a bedroom demo, so I don't expect it to sound like, a Grammy Award winning song. It's just a bedroom demo, but I had to make sure that I was doing the right things. And because of that, there was a lot of work in that file that you saw that amounted to nothing. So, and each one of those files that I didn't use took time to make. And, it's a process. I've been disheartened over the years of doing this stuff myself. Half the reason why my songs we don't see a major boatload of progress on my songs all the time as far as a tangible thing such as a demo or whatever. I'm writing songs all the time, or refining or working on my songs all the time. I've sucked at mixing, and this I learned a lot this time around. So just know that I kind of got my excitement reinvigorated. In the whole, getting my own songs to a point by myself first before I have to worry about bringing anyone in. As you've seen in other videos, I tend to, I always like to work with another person, and I haven't had another person. And one of the things I relied on other people for was stuff like EQing, because I felt like I didn't have the ear for it. And I'm not going to make any bold claims and think I'm like fucking Bob Rock or nothing. But, I feel better in the, recording process, because once I record my album, I'm going to do it along this process. Get scratch drums, do scratch guitars first. This time I did bass first. Everything was based off of the bass. And another thing too, these mixes that you're listening, the bass is higher up than it would be if this was a real song. If this was a real song, the bass wouldn't be as audible as it is. That is the purpose of this. So this was all written around trying to show you the characteristics of the pickup, not like my technique, not my playability, not my songwriting, my chord structure. It was simply just an audio exercise. But yeah, doing this process made me feel better, because when I do the guitars for my album, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to record a fractal tone for me, so that way I can hear it like as it sounds, and then the DI for when it goes to the studio. Do my edits, and then I'll send the files out, song at a time or a couple songs at a time, and I'll just only have to send them out for mixing. Who knows? Maybe I won't have to send them out. Maybe by that time I'll be able to mix them myself and be able to get to just have someone else master it, We'll see. But really great things were done this time. And I'm super excited to get back out there and have to play some awesome songs for you guys. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so very much. See you soon. And let's make sure we're on the right. Let's make sure. Before we go out, I want to make sure that... Yeah. See, it's not even on the right thing. Back to that. So enjoy the tune. I hope you guys like it. Thank you so much. And I'll see as many of you out on the road as you're able to come out. Remember, comment down below and talk to me. The more stuff you guys put in the bottom, the more I know what you guys want to see and want to feel. I know what I want to show you guys, but I don't know everything that you guys want to see. So if there's any questions you have, anything you want to see in specific, let me know. I will do breakdowns. I'm going to also be doing for the Backstage Buddies on this tour. I'm going to be posting videos that are exclusive to you guys. Granted, whatever tier you're on above that, you get it also. But no one else. Like, remember, the stuff that I post here in Patreon is only here in Patreon. I do post it on YouTube to give you guys the video link, but these are unlisted videos. You can't get this without the link. Without clicking on it here. So it's, none of this stuff is public. So Backstage Buddies, you guys, I'm going to be restructuring the tiers a little bit so that way the content is more tangible for me to do. But yeah, dude, thank you guys so much. There's going to be lots of backstage footage coming, lots of behind the scenes footage, lots of live footage from the Winter Wasteland tour, and maybe even from the Black Label tour, and more progress on Ocean of Storms. It has been such a long time coming, and thank God we're in such a great position nowadays. I know the world was uncertain for a little while, but I promise you, everybody, we've gotten through it, and we're going to keep getting through it, and we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to conquer the goddamn world. That being said, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much.